Hello, it's Neil Paddock from howtoprogramdrums.com and howcanimakemusic.com. Hope you're having a good day. This video is in response to some bits and pieces about Sampletank. So I want to explore how to get Sampletank working correctly with Reaper. And I don't know whether you've poured through the manual. Let's have a look anyway. So this is how I've looked at some of the videos on YouTube, and this is what I've been able to piece together so far. So if I insert a virtual instrument on a new track, let's see what happens. It's going to scan, and I need to go into my filter list and type in Sampletank, and we're going to go for the 32 output version. And here it's going to start building some routing for us. So there you go, it's going to bung an extra 16 tracks on with all this stereo routing on. And if we don't do this, as it says, only the stereo 1 and 2 outputs will be audible. So we're going to say yes to that. So here's my Sampletank. It's come up and I've now got 16 tracks of audio underneath. Now, is that good news? Well, let's see. What I took the liberty of doing is loading a preset in Sampletank called All 32 Channels. And the reason for this is that I noticed in one of the videos on YouTube by JJ, actually, hello JJ, that he changed the output routing in Sampletank, and it's not like that by default. It's 1 plus 2 all the way down. So essentially, if you want to be able to go and change this yourself, you just click on the track. Probably got to click over here, actually, see 008 synth. Go over here and you can drag. If I put my arrows over the output here, I can drag those backwards and forwards and make those anything I want. But obviously you don't want to do that every time you launch Sampletank. So I've created a preset called All 32 Channels. And I could go ahead and populate these with all different Sampletank sounds. I haven't. So, sorry about that. Anyway, there's something else I need to do, and I picked this up from another video. We've got audio routing now, and I'm not going to try anything. I don't want to complicate this too much. But so our first thing that we've done successfully is that we've got our Sampletank channels down the side here, 2x1, 2x2, and so on and so forth, right the way down to 16. And I'm not going to test them yet. What we then did is we built these outputs by going down each part number, as it's called. So part 1 is routed to outputs 1 and 2. Part 2 is routed to outputs 3 and 4. So basically it starts with all the odd numbers until we get down to the bottom, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and so on. So having done that, I then went through and just arbitrarily picked some instruments on here. But there's something else we need to do as well, which I picked up from another video on YouTube. And we need to build 16 channels of Midi routing to the track. Now I'm just wondering, actually, does it matter what track I have selected at the time? And it probably does. Anyway, let's click that. And in a quick as a flash, we have now another 16 channels have been added, and this time they've got MIDI, MIDI 1, MIDI 2, MIDI 3, and so on, right the way down to channel 16. If I just move that out of the way, let's have a look where it stops. So we go down to, MIDI 16, and then the original channels that were set up when I brought the instrument in start there, and we've got another 16 of those. So it's kind of heavy going. We've got quite a few tracks to choose from with our one instrument. Now, suppose I want to play a MIDI file. Now there's a couple of things we could do here. We could try and play with my MIDI keyboard. Shall we try that anyway? Let's very quickly do that anyway. So the way I would normally do it is I would arm the track. I'd click the little monitoring button. And I'd go and configure my MIDI to be Akai MPK49 all channels. Now I haven't got anything selected yet, or have I? Let's pull over Sampletank and see what it's actually doing. So it's playing part 1 and part 2. See when I hold down the buttons? Oh, and it's playing part 3 as well. Now, this is not a coincidence. What it does is it plays part 1 because it's set to channel 1. It plays part 2 because it's set to channel 1. And it plays part 3 because it's set to channel 1. Okay. Now, I don't have all the answers on this, but I think that's deliberate. What we're not able to do is play all 16 channels at the same time with our Midi keyboard, which is a bit of a shame actually, but there we go. So, if I change these channels to 2, it's now working. Now it didn't do that before actually. That's typical, isn't it? I was just about to say it's not going to work. And if I change them to 3, oh, now we haven't got anything. So that's kind of interesting. Well, I'm still feeling my way around. This is actually MIDI channel 2. I would expect it to work on 2. And if I go to the next one, it's still playing channel 2. So it's kind of a bit confusing, I reckon. If I go to this one, which says MIDI 3, and I configure that, let's have a look at the top. It's still playing channel 2, I think. That's a bit of a nonsense, isn't it? This does not make sense to me, I have to say. So if you were looking for a training video that gives you all the answers, I'm afraid this isn't going to do it first time. So I'm going to actually take the arming bits off of those, so the AR goes back to being that kind of dark colour instead of red. And now I'm going to pull in a MIDI file. Bit of a cop out, but it's a hell of a lot easier to work out if something's working if you've just got a MIDI file that you know works. So I'm going to insert media file, and I've got one called Tuesday Bass Only, and because I had track 4 selected, it's put it on there. So I'm just trying to orientate myself here. And what I want to do is I want to drag that up. Now it's currently on the MIDI tracks 1, 2, and 3. What's going to happen? In fact, let's put it on 4 and 5 as well. So let me just undo that because that was hideous. I'm going to select that one and I'm going to pull that down. So we now have 4 tracks on MIDI 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm hedging my bets now. Something should work, shouldn't it? So when I press play, I'm going to stop, rewind to the beginning and press play. Okay, now, at the moment, let's just stop it for a second. Did you see these little lights up here? Let's pull this Sampletank thing across again. And what I'd like you to do is have a look up when we play again. See, it's playing 3, 2, and 3. In fact, let's set those back to how they should be. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're all working, aren't they? So that would tend to suggest if I open up this channel, channel 4, and bung something else on there, like, I don't know, classical harp or something, harp arpeggios, is that going to work too? It should do, because we've got the bass line on MIDI 4. Let's call it MIDI 4. So let's press play again. And if we solo 4, there is some activity going on, but you can barely hear it. I think it's just a bit of a duff preset, to be honest. So what I'll do, in fact, I'm going to change that back to something a bit meatier. Let's try an acoustic guitar. I'm going to start at the beginning again. So I'm just soloing. Okay, I've had to turn that up a load to get acoustic 12, so I just think it's a very quiet preset. In fact, it's slightly lower in volume, isn't it? If I pull that up to 127, adjust the volume, we've got that one working. I'm going to turn the volume down. That's MIDI part 3, MIDI 3. That's part 2, MIDI 2, synth bass. And that's all of them together. Okay, so that's 10 minutes worth of, oh, did it work or not? We've got it working, and if you wanted to copy JJ's video and put YMCA or something similar on your machine, this setup will now do it for you. But I wanted to just emphasize that in JJ's video, he didn't actually specify that you have to build 16 channels of MIDI. And without that, it doesn't work. So there you go. I hope that gets you a step closer. So although we're now at 11 minutes, I'm just going to briefly go back and say what we just did. So obviously we wanted to try Sampletank. So the first thing I did was I inserted a virtual instrument on a new track. It then asked me to, if I wanted to set up 32 channels of information, and I believe they're audio channels. Okay, and that's why the MIDI isn't going to work first time once you've set all that up. So we click yes, it populates that with all that stuff, and obviously when it loads Sampletank into the first track 1 window, you then have this options screen, and I then went on to build 16 channels of MIDI routing to the track. We messed around then briefly with pressing the AR buttons and putting my Akai NPK 49 all channels and twiddling around with that. And see, it's playing the saw. It only ever seems to play whatever's on channel 1, and I haven't figured out how to fix that yet. Stay tuned for another video in due course. And finally, what we did, of course, is we dragged in some bass guitar files, some MIDI files, and by setting those on MIDI 1, MIDI 2, MIDI 3, MIDI 4, and then checking that the channels were the same on here, I press play, and lo and behold, by a great miracle, we get 4 different MIDI channels at the same time. And that's just for illustration purposes. Obviously, if you wanted to set up an instrument on each of the 16 channels in the method that I have described, then you should be fine. And don't forget, I nearly forgot, that I set up a preset called all 32 channels. You need to change the outs as well. Okay? And don't forget, if you're in any doubt as to what's happening, check your channels down the bottom. I mean, we've got one instrument, we've got 32, 33 channels now. And while it's playing, so you've got your Sampletank outs, your audio outs are physically playing those. And similarly, you've got your 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8 are all playing, and they're obviously corresponding to 1, 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, so I've gone on for ages. Hope that's useful. If it is, please leave a like, leave a comment, and stay tuned for further videos. Until then, it's bye from me. Have a good day. Cheers.